some of the things they do and everything else. And it's also amazing as well, too. And do you have any other plans to write any other books or any other sequels or anything on Amazon?
Yeah, I've got ideas going all the time, and I write. The way that I write is I write every day. I talk to certain writers. There are a lot of writers that come to me for advice, and there's a lot of writers that I know. I used to do some of the conventions and things like that. I've withdrawn from doing a lot of that at this point, although they still ask me. But I become less and less interested in that over the years. But I hear a lot of writers that say, "Oh, I write when the muse speaks to me," or things like that, where they try to make writing seem as if it's this spiritual endeavor, and it really isn't. Writing, it has about as much in common with ditch digging as it does anything else.
Right, exactly.
And what I do is I write 2,000 to 2,500 words every day. And I do that every single day, unless I've just finished a book, and then I usually take about a week or so off, a couple weeks off, to like rest and recharge. But if I'm not in that short rest period, I'm writing at least 2,000 words every day, and that usually takes me about an hour or an hour and a half. I've been blessed with the fact that I am a very quick typer, and when it comes to writing, my mind works quickly, so I'm able to get a lot of work done in a shorter period of time than a lot of my colleagues are. But when it comes to writing, you write every day, you read every day, and that's how you become a good writer. I mean, that's my point of view. If you're not writing and you're not reading, then you're not serious about becoming a writer. So I've always got stuff going on. People really want another. There's 3 books about Bentley Grimes. That's the name of the serial killer, and there are people that want more of those books. And I definitely will get to more of those at some point. But the one I'm working on right now that I'm pretty excited about is about a man who gets in an accident, and basically, so he is a writer, but he's not famous in any way. He's tried to have some books published, and he's failed. He hasn't found any success at it, and he does a series about it's sort of a Game of Thrones type thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a sword and sorcery kind of fantasy series that he does. What happens is he just writes these books, and then he lets his wife and daughter read them. He gets in an accident and goes into a coma for 7 years. When he finally awakes from his coma, he's discovered that his daughter, who really believed in him, started self-publishing his books online, and they became enormously popular, like as popular as Game of Thrones or something like that. So now all of a sudden there are all these reporters after he wakes up. There's all these fans demanding that he finish the series. All this stuff and all this pressure. So I got the idea because I thought, how interesting would it be if somebody was just a normal person and went into a coma and woke up and they were world famous, and how jarring would that be? And I thought it would be an interesting way to talk about the nature of fame and the nature of celebrity, and how our culture treats celebrity. So that's the one I'm working on right now that I'm very interested in.
That does sound very interesting, just waking up from a coma, realizing you're world famous, and they put pressure. That is very original. I love your ideas, and let's talk more about that next time as well, too. And, of course, another question that popped in mind as well, too, with you being a dad, with you doing these podcasts, you doing the sports, you're writing his books in 2,000 words, which take an hour, which give everybody impression. They think 2,000 words is a lot, but not really. How do you manage to do it and spend time with your wife and kids?
Well, I'm lucky in the fact that my wife works from home, and so do I, obviously. So I get to see her, a decent amount during the day. I am pretty busy. My day usually starts around 9 o'clock in the morning, and I'm going pretty constantly without breaks until 6 o'clock or so at night. And then there are nights like tonight I have a conference call, actually 2 conference calls with different business people about, business for the website and business for the podcast. So, I'm definitely a busy person, but during the day, it's not as big of an issue because my wife is also working, just across the office from me. And, we get to talk at least a little bit, and my kids are in school. I have a 13-year-old daughter, an 8-year-old son, and a 5-year-old daughter. Uh-huh. So they're all in school at this point. But I definitely, I try to make the evening for the family. So, at 6 o'clock when I'm done, I try to completely be done, put my phone away, and all that stuff, and we'll spend the evenings together. And I schedule it out to where the weekends are completely free for me. So, it's all about making the time for the things that are important to you, and my family is definitely the most important thing to me. So I make time for them for sure.
That is amazing, too. We've got a few minutes here. It's been a great conversation with you, Mark. And what do you consider your most favorite projects, and what do you consider most challenging, and what's been your most memorable moment in a podcast and everything?
Well, it's hard to pin down one project that I'm most passionate about. As your audience probably has gotten the impression at this point, I'm a bit of a schizophrenic, I suppose, when it comes to things, because I love writing. Writing has been my first passion, obviously, and doing articles and writing novels is definitely very rewarding. The podcast is a whole different kind of animal, and we do some YouTube videos as well, which again is different. A lot of it, I suppose, the common denominator is writing or creative thought. I basically just look at myself as a creative person, so any place that I can get that creative release is something that is enormously, a source of pride for me. But the most challenging, I think, is probably running the website, like actually doing the business end of the website is probably the most challenging for me. It's not something that I am incredibly well versed in, so I've done a lot of research, I've done a lot of reading on different things to try to get a good sense of how to do things the right way. So that's probably the most challenging, but it's also incredibly rewarding as well. And most disappointing, that one's tough. I've been very lucky in that I haven't had a ton of professional disappointment, really, in my career, and I definitely consider myself blessed because of that. I guess I would probably say the short stories. I write a lot of short stories. One of the books that you can find on Amazon is called Typewriter Blood. Mm-hmm. It's actually a Ernest Hemingway quote where he said, "Writing is easy. All you do is sit down at a typewriter and bleed."
I like that one.
That's a collection of short stories. So that's at least one way to get short stories into the hands of the public, but they don't seem to be as popular anymore, short stories, like they were in the heyday in the 50s and the 60s. And I'm not exactly sure why that is. You would think with shorter attention spans being shorter, how they are in our modern societies, that you would think that short stories would be more popular than even novels now, but they just aren't. There's not a big market for them anymore, and the market that did existed has severely dried up. So I think that's probably the most disappointing thing to me.
Mm-hmm. And who would you consider biggest influence in your career?
Well, as far as writing goes, I would say probably Stephen King and William Faulkner and John Steinbeck. Those would be the three. Those have been my three favorite authors for a long time. especially Stephen King. Stephen King was the first adult writer that I really read, probably when I was too young to read him. But I grew up on the Hardy Boy books and Encyclopedia Brown, things like that. And my sister, when I was around 11 years old, gave me Pet Sematary to read, and I just absolutely fell in love with it and fell in love with the writing, and went out and got as much Stephen King material as I could, read everything that I could, and went through his catalog pretty quickly. And Faulkner, I discovered a little later, at probably high school, and John Steinbeck was, sort of in between those two. And what I like about Steinbeck is Steinbeck uses very minimalist language. He uses very simple, language, but the sentence structure and the ideas that he's conveying are incredibly complex. And I enjoy that about Steinbeck's writing because it makes it accessible to anyone, to even people that don't have a large vocabulary. For instance, Thomas Wolfe, which is another writer that I've read a lot, his vocabulary is bigger than probably anybody that I've ever read, but you have to have a dictionary when you're reading a Thomas Wolfe book to figure out everything that he's saying. But it's second nature to him because he just happened to have a very large vocabulary. Mm-hmm. So those would probably be my biggest influences as far as writing goes. As far as the podcast goes, I didn't listen to a ton of podcasts before we started ours, but, a lot of ones that really inspire me are other podcasts that are on our podcast network. For instance, Boy Meets World, which is a Boy Meets World podcast, Decomposition podcast, that they decompose different music, like they have a different song every week. Guys like that really inspire me to step up my game. So as far as podcasts go, I'd probably have to say them.
That is very nice. I mean, you have a wealth of knowledge and a wealth of experience. I really enjoy talking with you in this. And what's the best advice you can give right now to anybody who wants to get into writing or sports or anything like that?
Well, for writing, like I said, write a lot and read a lot. If you want to become a writer, that's the way to do it. Mm-hmm. And read what you want to write. If you want to be a sports writer, if you want to be a columnist, read a lot of columns. If you want to write a novel, read a novel. If you want to go into screenwriting for either screenplays for films or teleplays for television, they're on the internet. You can find screenplays on the internet. You can find teleplays on the internet. Read them. Read because read the bad ones too. Mm-hmm. Because the bad ones, the bad books and the bad screenplays and the bad novels will teach you more than the good ones will. Because you'll see things that you say, I'm never going to do that. I'm never going to make that mistake. But obviously the good ones can teach you a lot as well.
Sounds like Howard the Duck.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, the internet gives us a wealth of knowledge out there. And read what you want to write and write a lot. Set aside some time to write every day. You don't have to write, a million words or anything like that, but set time to write every day and make it a habit. And that's how someone asked me one time how I write so many books, and my answer is one word at a time. So that's really how simple it is.
There you go. And I think that's a great one too. And for you sports fans, cheer on your Lions, Tigers, Pistons, and Red Wings.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Okay. All right, Mark, it's been a lot of fun. I really enjoy talking to you. I'll have to get out to Detroit sometime and, get a little pizza or a drink with you or, check out a Red Wings game or anything like that. It's been great talking to you and look forward to having you on again soon. Tell everybody your upcoming projects. Once again, what's your website and how can people contact you?
Yeah, so the website is MichiganSportsAndEntertainment.com. You can find all of our podcasts there. You can find all of our columns there. There's a lot of great work being done by a lot of great writers there. Like I said, we cover all the local area college and professional teams. We have a good entertainment section, and all of our podcasts are there. you can find my podcast